This video is about a piece called Clarinet Quintet Opus 10 by Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. The word opus in the title means work, and this is the way we use to number the pieces a composer made in chronological order. So in this case, this clarinet quintet was the 10th piece or work composed by Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. It was composed at the end of the 19th century in 1895 when the composer was only 19 or 20 years old. Your new piece could be inspired by this one in lots of ways. For example, you might be inspired by the composer and his life, or what you think this piece is about, or how it makes you feel when listening to it. You might be inspired by the music itself, for example, a particular tune or groove, and use samples of those in your new piece. You could also be inspired by some of the methods the composer used to create this piece, and apply those same techniques to your own new music. This clarinet quintet is split into 4 smaller pieces called movements. Let's have a listen to an extract from the 4th and final movement. How does that music make you feel? What did it make you think of while you were listening to it? Coleridge-Taylor was a student at the Royal College of Music in London when he wrote this piece. Like you, he was challenged by his teacher to create a piece of music for clarinet quintet. However, in his challenge, the teacher said that the new piece could not be influenced by the music of another very popular composer of that time called Johannes Brahms. Brahms had written a piece for clarinet quintet a few years earlier, and that piece was seen by many as the greatest piece for clarinet quintet since Mozart, another iconic composer. Brahms's clarinet quintet is also one of our 4 key pieces, so take a look at that video too. The teacher thought it would be impossible for his students to create a new piece for clarinet quintet that wasn't influenced by Brahms's masterpiece. But he was wrong. When he saw Coleridge-Taylor's clarinet quintet, his teacher exclaimed, "You've done it!" and arranged for it to be performed by a world-class ensemble at a concert in Berlin. Let's have a look at some of the music then, and think how you could use similar ideas in your own writing. One of the first things to notice is the use of what's called a Lombardic rhythm, or Scotch snap, as it's also sometimes known. To explain, let's imagine we have a rhythm that is 8 quavers. Sometimes in music, we can lengthen the first note in each pair of quavers by putting a dot next to it, and shorten the second note in the pair by making it a semiquaver. A less familiar way of changing that original quaver rhythm is by having the shorter semiquaver first, followed by the longer dotted quaver. That semiquaver, followed by a dotted quaver rhythm, is called a Lombardic rhythm or Scotch snap, and it's used lots of times throughout this clarinet quintet. Take a look at this section of music. How many Scotch snap rhythms can you see? Sometimes Coleridge-Taylor uses the Scotch snap rhythm as an accompaniment to a main tune that's being played in another instrument. For example, take a look at the music at the very beginning of the piece. Can you see the Scotch snap rhythms in the second violin and viola parts? Now let's take a listen to the second violin and viola playing that. Now let's add the rest of the instruments that play during those bars too, so you can hear how this Scotch snap rhythm has more of an accompanying role. As an exercise then, see if you can compose a short rhythm that uses some Scotch snap rhythms in it. Once you've created that rhythm, give it a pitch and assign it to one of the instruments in the quintet. Then, like Coleridge-Taylor, assign the same rhythm to another instrument, but this time this new instrument plays the rhythm on a different pitch. Experiment changing the pitches in the two instruments at different times. You may stumble across a sound you really like, and this could be the starting point for your new piece. Let's now take a look at how the Scotch snap rhythm can be used in a different way, this time in the main melody. Again, can you identify the Scotch snap rhythms that appear in the melody at the start of every other bar? Let's take a listen to how that sounds. As an exercise, why don't you try creating a melody that features Scotch snap rhythms? Once you've done this, think how you can develop it. For example, having the melody played again, but by a different instrument, or changing some of the pitches, but keeping the rhythms the same. One thing to remember when composing music for a clarinet quintet is that even though the ensemble is made up of 4 instruments from the string family and just 1 instrument from the woodwind family, it doesn't mean that the strings do all the accompanying and the clarinet does all the main tunes. It's best to think of the ensemble, the group of musicians, as a whole, with the instruments complementing each other in whatever they're doing. Here's some examples of this in Coleridge-Taylor's quintet. The first example is to have more than one instrument playing the same melody at the same time. Here, the clarinet and the second violin are doing exactly that. Sometimes instruments might play the same melody but in octaves. Here, the first violin is playing the same melody as the clarinet but 1 octave higher. Another example of demonstrating the instruments having varied roles is through a composition technique called imitation. This is when an instrument plays a rhythm or melody and then it's immediately copied by another instrument and then copied by another instrument and so on. Take a look at this section of music and see if you can spot this imitation technique. The clarinet plays a short tune. The first violin and cello then copy the second half of that tune. Then this is immediately copied again by the viola and cello. Slowed down, that passage of imitation sounds like this. This is a really common technique used in instrumental music. Composers can use the idea of imitation in slightly different ways too. In the example you just heard, Samuel Coleridge-Taylor's use of imitation is about creating a sort of musical conversation between the ensemble, passing the tune from one musician to the next. However, other composers may use a similar concept of imitation, but with a few tweaks. For example, they might imitate the rhythm, but change some of the pitches. So see if you can create a short 15-second passage of music using that imitation technique. I hope you enjoyed learning about Samuel Coleridge-Taylor's Clarinet Quintet Opus 10 and some of the composition techniques he used. And good luck with your composition. We can't wait to hear what you create.